evening, I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening's festivities on the 40th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. Thank God we wound up with beautiful weather after the hailstorm that we had earlier. It about took our tent down over there. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Mike Kennedy. I'm the Veteran Service Officer for Randolph County and one of the starting participants of the Journey Home. And on behalf of the Journey Home, I would like to welcome you. This community has given so much to the Journey Home over the last 2 years. This is our chance to give back in a way that we think is very appropriate. And this whole weekend of events started with the simple idea of having a parade to honor our veterans, our Vietnam veterans, on the 40th anniversary of the end of the war. And if it wasn't for Bridget stepping up forward and saying something, most of us wouldn't even remember that it's the 40th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. So this makes it a very special occasion for not only the Journey Home to be able to do this, but for Randolph County to be able to put this on in the city of Winchester. And so at this time, what I'd like to do is turn the podium over to Josh Stone. He's going to lead us in a word of prayer. And then we'll have the singing of the national anthem, laying of the wreath, and a guest speaker. So without further ado, Josh.
Let's pray. Abba, Father, we thank you so much for this day and the great opportunity that it is to be here and to honor those who have given so much in service of our country. We thank you so much for those who paid the ultimate price for our freedom. And we also thank you for those who continue to live on past the war and past the combat and still continue to face the challenges that brings. We thank you as well for their families who went on the journey with them and who still continue to go on this journey with them as well. We thank you for these great, true American heroes of our country and the things that they have given us as a result of such brave and valiant heroism. May you bless this time as we honor those who have served us so courageously as we continue on throughout the rest of this ceremony. As well as in your Son's name. Amen. Please now rise for the playing of the national anthem by Cindy Moist.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the
everyone would now face the wall for the playing of taps and the laying of the wreaths.
And welcome to the grand opening of the American Veterans Traveling Tribute. My name is Rich Johnson, and I am the CEO of K.I.S.S, a home health, hospice, and behavioral health company. But more importantly, I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. On behalf of the many thousands who will be viewing this amazing exhibit and visiting your community over the next several days, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you who made this possible. When I was asked to open this historic event on the eve of the 40th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, I was overwhelmed by the sheer honor to stand before the many veterans here tonight and the many more listed on that wall, who I greatly respect and admire. But to be honest, I had many sleepless nights, wondering if I was the right person to receive this honor. I was born in 1968 during the peak of the Vietnam War, the same year the Russians launched the Tet Offensive. What can I possibly say about a war I never experienced? What can I say never having seen combat at all? What do I know about the political, social, and economic unrest of that time that stirs so many emotions even today? I will readily admit that I am no expert on the Vietnam War, so I will not be speaking about a time or events of which I have no firsthand knowledge. I will not be regurgitating facts that you already know, and I most certainly will not stand up here tonight and tell you that I know what our heroes from the Vietnam War went through. because I simply don't. What I hope to convey on this historic night is how the heroes sitting before me and whose names are on that wall have shaped an entire generation. I am a son of the Vietnam era. And tonight, my message will be a simple message of love, honor, and respect from my generation to all of you heroes who sacrificed for a nation divided so I could live in a nation united. My message will be a simple message of gratitude from all of us who were born in the shadows of your greatness. Before I share that message, there are a few very special people I'd like to recognize. None of this would be possible without Connie and Mike Kennedy, founder and director of the Journey Home Veterans Program here in Winchester. It all began on October 1st of 2014 when Bridget Schwab Ashley reminded Connie and Mike that 2015 would mark the 40th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. Bridget felt strongly that Winchester should do something special to honor the heroes of the Vietnam War. Bridget's uncle, the late Butch Schwab, was one of those heroes, so this weekend is very personal to Bridget. Multitudes of gracious volunteers joined Mike and Connie with their time, talent, and money to make it all possible. Darla Bowman, Chris Garrett, Ted Martin, Deborah Henney, Dwight Albright, Mike Thorne, Kathy Bond, Bill Yost, and Jim Wacker. Although the wall honors our Vietnam veterans, it is the hope of these coordinators and volunteers that the many events over the next few days will pay tribute to all veterans and all members of military families as we collectively acknowledge their service and thank them for preserving the freedoms upon which this great nation was founded. My thanks to all of you who have made this possible. In 1986, like many of you, I made a life-changing decision to join the United States Air Force and was assigned to my first and what would become my last station at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. Wright-Patterson at the time was largely a civilian and officer workforce. I was one of the first enlisted classes to work at a particular unit at Wright-Patterson. Our unit was led by a Vietnam veteran. My direct supervisor was a Vietnam veteran. And the person who trained and mentored me throughout my entire career was a Vietnam veteran. Over the course of the next 4 years, my work ethic, values, and discipline were shaped by these three men, all of whom I consider friends to this very day. As life goes on, I don't see them often enough, but their legacy will be embedded in my heart forever and will be passed on to future generations. For the first year of my assignment, all of my questions about the Vietnam War were met with silence, avoidance, but mostly profound annoyance. It is not difficult to understand why veterans of this war are hesitant to open up about their experiences. Slowly, over the years, as we became closer, one by one they began to open up to the stories of horror, fear, confusion, and the pain inflicted upon them during this war. But none of that compared to the feelings of abandonment when they returned home. Over the years, I listened intently to story after story, many times the story ending with me having to excuse myself to gather my emotions away from these real-life heroes. These stories were stored in my memory when on one such occasion, they all came flooding back. I was watching the HBO series Band of Brothers about Easy Company from the Second World War. In one of the most riveting scenes from the series, you see Easy Company packed like animals, riding in the back of a truck, driving towards the front lines. When their orders came down, there was no time to grab winter clothes. Very few had weapons, and ammunition was scarce. These young men were on the doorsteps of the most violent battle in history, lacking the most basic necessities. Yet the only thing on their minds was victory. The truck stops a few kilometers outside of Bastogne, and the men quickly jump out and form two columns for their march into the city. One column on each side of the main road. You could see their breath in the freezing air as they marched on with determination. All of a sudden, in the distance came a sea of defeated American troops fleeing the front line in disarray. Many had thrown away their rifles, their coats, all encumbrances. They were in a panic, staggering, exhausted, shouting, "Run, run." They have everything: tanks, machine guns, air power, everything. The members of Easy Company looked at them with disgust as they stripped the soldiers of every coat, helmet, and rifle they could get their hands on. The camera closes in on Easy Company, still standing in two columns in the middle of the road, looking back at the thousands of retreating soldiers, wearing a look of disbelief on their faces. The two columns slowly turn to stand face to face, looking directly into the eyes of their brother in complete silence, taking in what they had just seen and heard. At that moment, no words were necessary. They knew the brother standing in front of them would gladly give up their life, and they would do the same. Suddenly, Lieutenant Winter screams out, "Easy Company, roll out." They turn toward Bastogne and begin their lonely march as the music fades with the silhouettes of retreating soldiers vanishing in the background. As I watched that gripping and emotional scene, I had tears rolling down my face, and I didn't know why. My mind had retreated to my conversations about the Vietnam War, wondering if that scene somehow embodied how every Vietnam War vet felt. Fighting a war that was politically impossible to win. At every turn, people were running away from them. The media, politicians, friends, family, the whole world. And yet they stood on the front lines in the heat of battle, all alone, standing face to face with their brother who would gladly give up their life for them, and they would do the same. Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever want to know what it means to be a hero, turn and look into the eyes of a Vietnam veteran. But don't be surprised if they turn to that wall and say that those were the heroes. When the architectural design for this wall was made public, it was rife with controversy and outrage, a natural extension of the war itself. Most of the outrage was from veterans who felt this was just one more insult hurled at those who answered the call of duty. A simple wall listing only the names of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. There would be no towering statue recognizable from miles away. No sacred site weaving through a park with guided tours. No grand museum constructed with the finest marble. No, it would be a wall that stands alone and embodies the spirit of everyone who served in Vietnam. The beauty of that wall rests in its imposing simplicity, which is the greatest tribute to all of the veterans it represents, who were known for their imposing simplicity. There was no fanfare when they returned home, like in past wars. No TV deals, no elected presidents, no fame and fortune. They were called, they served, and they returned with their heads held high, with imposing simplicity. How fitting is it for this memorial to have a mirror-like finish. The first time I visited the Vietnam Memorial, I am standing in front of a name I know, with tears streaming down my face. The name begins to fade, and my reflection comes into full view. The tears begin to flow more freely, as if that memorial is telling me, by my reflection, that the names on this wall freely died for me, a son of the Vietnam generation. As you visit this incredible wall over the next few days, I would encourage you to touch it like they have touched so many of us. And if you happen to know one of the fallen heroes on that wall, I hope you will permanently etch their name both on paper and in your mind, because they most certainly have etched their name in our hearts. On behalf of a grateful generation, I want to thank our Vietnam veterans who shaped my life and so many more by your humble service. I wish each of you could look into our hearts, because all of the love, respect, and admiration that was not present when you came home is living inside each one of us, and we will continue to pass on your legacy. We will always be eternally grateful to you for shaping our lives. Winchester, Indiana, I thank you for bringing 4 generations together for this noble purpose. And I thank you all for making the dream of a few become the reality for the many. And now it's my privilege to officially open this commemorative event on this 30th day of April, 2015. God bless you all, and God bless America.
My name is Cindy Moisner, and I have been blessed and honored to sing at several wall events, and I can't say enough about seeing it in person each time. I have a lot of friends that served in Vietnam, a lot of friends that have served in other wars. But when you look at this wall, don't see names, see faces, and just know that they paid the ultimate price. Don't hesitate to thank a veteran. Know that they served. And just know that there's no way that you can know the sacrifice that they have paid, whether it be during wartime or not. I encourage you all to be extremely thankful for what they do. I have 3 songs that I'm going to do. One was sort of asked, I was asked to sing it by one of my relatives who served in the military during Vietnam. And hold on, I'm covering up for the wind here. And it was a commercial song. It was done by Billy Ray Cyrus. It's called Some Gave All. And I'm trying to give Bill a couple of minutes to get the guitar set up, because we are gonna do this live. We're not gonna do it with CDs. But this one has a special message, and it had a special message for him. And as I come back around, the next song we'll be doing is God Bless the USA. And the third song I will explain right before I start singing it. all the pressure's on Bill. I also want to thank Mike and Connie for putting things together. I know that it took several people to pull it all together. And if you see everything that you're witnessing tonight, know that any other event that comes around, they always need volunteers. And you do not have to have served in the military to be a volunteer to help the veterans. And it's very important that we all come together and remember the service and remember the sacrifice hand in hand, because we all enjoy the freedoms. Knew a man called him Sandy Kane. You folks even knew his name. But a hero was he. Left a boy, came back a man. Still many just don't understand about the reasons we are free. Can't forget the look in his eyes or the tears he cries as he said these words to me. All gave some gave all. Some stood through for the red, white, and blue, and some had to fall. If you ever think of me, think of all your liberties and recall. Some gave all. Sandy Kane is no longer here, but his words are oh so clear as they echo throughout our land. For all his friends who gave it all, stood the ground and took the fall to help their fellow man. Love your country and live with pride. Don't forget those who died. America, can't you see? All gave some, and some gave all. Some stood through for the red, white, and blue, and some had to fall. If you ever think of me, think of all your liberties and recall. Yes, recall. Some gave all. If you ever think of me, think of all your liberties and recall. Some gave all. This song seems to stir up so much patriotism, and it takes so much more than just patriotism. However, I think Lee Greenwood did a beautiful job presenting this song initially. And I think it kind of binds us all together, almost like the national anthem. If tomorrow all the things were gone, worked for in my life, and I had to start again with just my family and my life, thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and you can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. There ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. For there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Thank you. And last but not least, several years ago, I worked for a newspaper out of town, and I didn't write. I sold advertising, but I had the occasion on my route to have 3 Vietnam veterans who owned businesses in the area that I met with and interacted with over the period of 4 or 5 years. And it was coming up on an anniversary, and we were working on some things in Richmond as far as honoring our veterans. And 3 gentlemen, Gary Franklin, Jeff Barrows, and Miles Manning, who is from up this direction. We all sat down and had discussions, and I really don't even know why this all came about through discussions of advertising, but we were talking about the war and their experience and how they became involved in the war. One enlisted, one was drafted, the other one left college to go. And I went home one night and these words came pouring out on paper. And I call it the Vietnam song. I actually call it Were You There, but the rest of the world calls it the Vietnam song. God gave me the words. I actually hooked up with a guitar player who started this. Bill has been kind enough to learn it for me, so that when we're out and about, if someone asks to hear it, we can do the song. But this song is dedicated to all of the Vietnam veterans that opened their hearts and talked to people and shared, and the three that are so special to me for what they gave me. And I was already a believer in the military and our service and the sacrifices for freedom. But these gentlemen just poured out their hearts. And all I could do as a daughter of the Vietnam era, I like the way you put that, was to just sit there and say, I get it, and yet there's no way I can understand because I didn't walk in your shoes. And that's where this song came from. Sat quietly as I told him why I was there. He listened intently, but he didn't hear. We began to talk about our world affairs. Paused and said, you won't understand, 'cause you weren't there. He served us as a young man, but wasn't quite sure why. Dropped out of college just to watch men die. In his battle to find what he had lost back then, part of him was still lost somewhere in Vietnam. Vietnam, the hell he lived through. Vietnam, were you there in Vietnam? Brought nightmares home of a world that I could never dream. Lived a pain and loneliness like I've never seen. In his heart he knew he'd never be the same. He needed someone to share his pain. Came back to a broken home and war protest. Some spit and cursed him, but he'd done his best. A part of him lay dead on some jungle floor. No one at home could understand what for. Vietnam, the hell he lived through. Vietnam, were you there in Vietnam? People say he came home a boy and returned a man. Came home in pieces with a cane in his hand. Laid down his rifle, but his war's not done. Still rages inside of him his Vietnam. I hear the bombs as they come crashing down. It's through his stories that I have found. I don't really understand at all what he went through in Vietnam. Vietnam, the hell he lived through. Vietnam, Vietnam, the hell he lived through. He was there in Vietnam. God bless those who served in Vietnam. Were you there in Vietnam? Thank you all for being here. Mike, do you have nothing else to say? Always show your appreciation. Give Mike a big hand because he's walking up here. He'll wave it off and say he doesn't deserve it, but give him a hand anyway. Thank you to all the vets.
I just want to remind you of the rest of the week's festivities that we're going to have. The wall is open 24/7, and tomorrow evening we're having a candlelight vigil, and there'll be music that'll be sung also. Keith going to be here. Keith LaVoy will be here to sing. Saturday, of course, is the parade and the concert in the park that starts at 6 o'clock. Sunday will be a sunrise service and the closing ceremony at 1 o'clock. So please come out, enjoy the parade, and I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening, and thank again all the volunteers that help make this such a beautiful event. Thank you.